Good day, learners! Welcome to Arts 9, Western Classical Arts Traditions. Today's topic is about ancient arts. Here are the objectives in our lesson today. 1. Identify distinct characteristics of arts during the different art periods. 2. Describe the different art forms and artistic elements. 3. Create an artwork following distinct characteristics of the prehistoric arts and Egyptian arts. Before we start, let's proceed to pre-test. In this activity, you have to identify what art forms is illustrated in each slide. You will only be given 5 seconds to choose the correct answer. Are you ready? Let's start! If your answer is painting, that's correct. Next. If your answer is painting, that's correct. Next. If your answer is handicraft, that's correct. Next. If your answer is architecture, that's correct. If your answer is sculpture, that's correct. Now, let's start our lesson about ancient arts. Did you know that ancient arts is composed of different art forms and artistic elements? So, to understand it more deeply, let's go over the prehistoric arts. Prehistoric are art produced in prehistorical cultures or era that includes all human existence before the emergence of writing. Their art is of interest not only by historians but also to archaeologists and anthropologists in understanding early human life and culture. The animals in human figures were partly drawn, partly cut in the rock. Let us first discuss the paintings in prehistoric era. The purpose of paintings from prehistoric era may have been their way of communicating with each other and used for religious or ceremonial purpose. Prehistoric arts are humans' first created art. Also, painting from prehistoric era features large animals, human figures, and abstract designs, just like this. This particular art is called the Great Hall of the Bulls in the Cave of Lascaux. Now, let's have the sculptures in prehistoric era. Materials used in sculptures vary according to region and locality. Archaeologists believe that their sculpture is a result of natural erosion and not of human artistry. Here is an example of sculpture of the prehistoric era. This particular art is called the Venus of Willendorf. It is carved from limestones with excessively heavy breasts and abdomen used as charm to ensure fertility. Another sculpture from the prehistoric era is called the Venus of Brasimpoi, a sculpture of a lady with the hood. It is a fragment ivory figurine from the Upper Paleolithic era that realistically represents the human face and hairstyle. Now, let's proceed to the architecture of prehistoric era. Man has developed a form of architecture based on megaliths, means a big rock. From the Greek word lithos, meaning stone, and megas, meaning big. This architecture is made of huge stone, which were probably intended for burial. So basically, this is where they held ceremonies of putting the dead bodies. There are 3 main types of megalith stones: cromlech, dolmens, and menhir. First, let's discuss about cromlech. Literally, cromlech is a circle of standing stones, just like what you see in this picture. The word cromlech is a Brythonic word wherein crom means bent or curved, while lech means flagstones. The best preserved cromlech megalithic sites can be found in Europe. Next is dolmens. The word dolmen originated from the expression taolmaen, which means stone tables. The structure of this megalith is in a form of table consisting of two huge standing stones supporting a horizontal giant stones. Next is called menhir. Menhir is a huge stone standing vertically on the ground, usually standing in the middle of the field or arranged in rows, just like what you see in this picture. Now, let's move on and discuss about Egyptian arts. Egyptian arts are paralleled to their country's political history and mostly the reflection of the relationship between humankind, the king, and the pantheon of the gods. Let's go over first with the Egyptian architecture. Architectural style of Egyptian was developed during the pre-dynastic period 4000 years BC, and the most important part of it were the creation of pyramids and temples. Now, let us know the characteristic of Egyptian architecture. The structure has thick sloping walls with few openings to obtain stability. Hieroglyphics and pictorial frescoes and carvings were painted in brilliant colors. Another characteristic is the presence of ornamentations in Egyptian architecture. The ornamentations were symbolic, including scarab or sacred beetle, solar disk, and vulture. Egyptian sculptors possessed the highest capacity for integrating ornamentation and the essential forms of their buildings from natural objects such as palm leaves, the papyrus plant, and the buds and flowers of lotus. They developed conventionalized motifs. As you observed, Egyptian architecture developed because of the early growth of Egypt's urban culture. Another example of Egyptian architecture is called the Pyramid of Giza. The pyramids of Giza in Egypt are among the most famous pieces of architecture in the world. Now let's have Egyptian paintings. Egyptian paintings show mythological representations and scenes of the everyday activities of the Egyptians, such as hunting, fishing, farming, or formal meal. Next is Egyptian paintings. Now, let's have another Egyptian art form, the sculptures. Egyptian sculpture includes statues of figures representing king, pharaohs, armies, servants, and various animals. The Egyptian sculptures are idealized immobile representations of features and always in frontal pose. Strong geometric emphasis was given to the body. Here's an example of Egyptian sculpture. This sculpture is called Akhenaten and Nefertiti sculpture. Nefertiti was one of the most mysterious and powerful women in ancient Egypt. She was a queen married by the pharaoh Akhenaten. Now, let's have an activity to know how much you have learned from our lesson today. In this activity, you have to fill the blanks with the characteristics and functions that would best describe the art forms in every era and period. Please write the purpose or functions in the center table and the artistic elements in the right table of each art forms. For your art production, here are the things that you need to accomplish. 1. Create an example of prehistoric painting in Oslo paper, landscape layout, use only color scheme black and brown. 2. Create a version of sarcophagus in Oslo paper, portrait layout, using charcoal pencil. That's all for today's lesson. I hope you learned something today. Thank you for listening.